Welcome to another episode of Roll or Die. Today's guest has come to us as a result of a request from two people who put forward this lovely person that we are going to be chatting with. They've recently opened up a new academy here in Melbourne, Supreme Art Jiu Jitsu. She's a brown belt under Carlos Viera at Cia Paulista, and also our good friend Augusto, who has previously been on the podcast too. And we are really looking forward to getting to know Alys James. Thanks for joining us, Alys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for inviting me.
It's awesome to have you on, Alys. Supreme Art Club Jiu Jitsu, whereabouts are you located and how long have you been open? Tell us a story.
We are on Park Street in South Melbourne, which is just up near the Shrine end of Park Street. And we've been open just on 3 and a bit months. So not very long at all.
Literally looked at your watch and went, shit, how long? That's awesome.
Yeah, I looked at like, is it 3 months? No, it's 3.5 months now. Yeah.
How's it going?
Yeah. So tell us a bit more about that. Like, how did that come to be and what's it been like?
So Supreme Art Club came about when my head coach, Carlos, decided to close his CBD location. So he decided that was happening late last year. And I live in Richmond and I was training in the CBD, and his other location is in Maribyrnong. And that's hard. I have a almost 6-year-old daughter, a busy job. Well, I did then. Now I have a different job. And it was a struggle for me. And so I was training. I was going there and I was still training with Carlos, and he's still my head coach. But around January, my good friends who I train with, Augusto and Luana, had to close the gym that they tried to open down in Clyde. And I said to them, well, would you like a business partner? Do you want to do something together? Let's open something in the city and try and capture some of the students that we lost from the headquarters of Cia Paulista and see if we can open something up. And they were all on board. We caught up 4 or 5 times for dinners and catch-ups with my husband, with those two, just to make sure we were all on the same page, make sure that we liked each other, made sure it all made sense, came up with a business plan. It was really interesting. Every time we came up with things, Augusto and I have always been on the same page. We've had 1 or 2 like really minor little differences where we've had, should we do this or do we do that? And we wanted to go different ways. It was easy to come to a compromise in those situations. But throughout the journey, we've always been on the same page of what we wanted the club to be, to look like, to feel like, the community we wanted to build. And it's been a really natural progression from that initial stages to the business plan to the bank account to finding the spot in South Melbourne and then an opening. So it wasn't easy. It took 8 months to open.
Any lessons that you learned through going through that process?
You always need more money than you think you do.
Welcome to life.
Yeah, you always need more money, and also just you need to have patience with the council process. So we got stuffed around by council so much, and it was very, very frustrating. Yeah. We had to, because we converted a ground floor office building to a gym space. So there were bathrooms already, but we ripped up the carpet tiles and took out partition walls, and my husband's a builder, so we did most of the work ourselves or through our construction company. So that was great. However, council needed us to advertise to change the use of the premises, and we went through the advertising process and we had 1 objector. So we automatically had to go to another 28-day waiting period. The council issued their notice of decision, but they only issued the notice of decision to us, not to the objector. So at the end of the 28-day notice period, they went to issue the permit and realised the mistake they'd made and made us see out another 28-day notice period. So, Augusto had already quit his full-time job. He'd moved into an apartment across the road. Yeah. We just wanted to open. We were ready to open. Yeah. We were just ready. And were messaging us going, you're opening next week. And Augusto was in Sydney that weekend for the subversion competition. He was fighting Josh Saunders. Yeah. And it was the night before the fight. And I'd messaged them and I'd said, we're getting the permit today. The council guy just told me it's all coming through. And then 2 hours later, I had to call them back and say, I'm really sorry, guys, but it's not happening for another month. And I felt awful. I almost didn't want to tell them. But that situation for me really affirmed how good of a person Augusto is, because I was stressed out they were going to be upset at me and the process and whatever had happened. And on the Monday when they came back, and Augusto and I were off doing a first aid course together for the gym, and he just said, look, sometimes, God works in mysterious ways. Maybe we would have opened and somebody would have got seriously injured. Yeah. Let's just take the next month and keep preparing and keep pushing, and it'll be fine. We'll be fine. It's all good. And that was just what I needed to hear. So yeah, it was really good.
What an attitude, yeah.
Brazilians have got a very, they're very, beautiful kind of attitude with certain things, They're very big-hearted and quite relaxed about certain things, I guess. So, I guess that's a great thing. But a pretty ballsy idea of yours to jump in on something like this, yeah? Do you mind if I ask, was there sort of other stuff going on in your life that you're like, no, I want to become a full-time jiu-jitsu academy owner type of thing, or just on a whim? Or
yeah, there was. So my husband and I ran a construction company, and we actually put it into administration this year. So at the time, I didn't know that was happening, but I did know I wasn't happy doing what I was doing for work. And I knew that work was very stressful. The construction industry in Melbourne at the moment is atrocious. So it's so bad that my husband is now working in Sydney 3 days a week as a builder. So when it got to, so I guess in January, I had literally opened my computer up to start work again for the construction stuff. And I'm pretty sure I burst into tears. I was like, I don't want to do this. This sucks. And I was at training and I was like, we've been talking, my husband and I have been talking for a while about doing other things, diversifying, For me, my origins of work was 17 years in hospitality, and then I switched to construction for 8 years. So for me, it was always like, I might go back to hospitality, open a cafe, open something. I've got all this experience now running businesses, usually for other people. But when this idea came up, I was like, well, why not? And when Carlos said he was closing the headquarters in the cities, my husband Sam said to me, why don't you open a gym? Yeah. And I thought, I'd love to open a gym. I can run a gym, but I need a partner who can help me pull people in. I need a partner who is someone who has charm and charisma and who competes and who is generally, that kind of person that you need in jiu-jitsu. Yeah. And there were a couple of other people in our gym at the time who were talking about doing something, but it was 3 other black belts and then me saying, oh, I'd like to do something too. And I was kind of like, too many cooks in that kitchen. So yeah, I just sort of thought, let's see what we can do. Yeah. And I mean, we were able to open something that I wouldn't have been able to do on my own, and Augusto wouldn't have been able to do on his own. So we've opened something together that is just so much better, and our skills complement each other.
Yeah, that's really cool. Hey, I think it's funny. I put a Facebook post up today, and it was just something like live the life that you love, and like that's kind of the years in hospitality and then years in construction. Like, I'm so over this. I want to do something else, and like so many people just go, well, I can't do it. I'm just going to stay with it. It's all I know. But I think partly through doing something like jiu-jitsu where it's hard, but you can get through it, often just sitting there and pulling the trigger and go, you know what, I can do this. I'm going to have a go and we'll make it work, and then making the decision to actually do the things that you want to be doing. It's so important. So congratulations. It's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, it's really exciting. So jiu-jitsu definitely has brought that kind of thing to my life. And even when you compete, it's terrifying, but you do it anyway. So my mantra is feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
For sure. So tell us how you did get started in jiu-jitsu. I'm
gonna share a nerdy little secret here that not many people know about, but it's probably good entertainment. So years ago, I used to play online war games.
Yep.
And I was in Scotland at the time. I was living in Scotland, and I moved back to Sydney first, and then I came home to Melbourne. And one of the guys who was another, I led a whole alliance on this war game. I was right into it. I was on there every single day, and we did late night attacks. We did the whole thing, right? And so one of the guys who I knew from the game, because we had an offline WhatsApp group, some of us which had on offline and knew each other fairly well virtually. And he was in Melbourne, and had been talking about how he was training jiu-jitsu. And I've always been quite active, a little bit sporty, running the gym or at the gym or indoor soccer, that kind of thing. And I was so bored of the gym. I was just so bored. And he's like, "Oh, come try this. You might like it." And I'd never even met him in person. So I rocked up at a no-gi session on a Friday lunch at Cia Paulista in the city. And Benny was there. And he was like, I'd met him downstairs and he took me upstairs. And I don't know if you guys had ever been to the headquarters of Cia Paulista in the city, but it was this rundown old building. We all knew why Carlos had to close because there were mushrooms growing in the ceiling. So it was it was beautiful gym space because of the community and the people, but you walked in there and it was grungy and, like I said, holes in the ceiling. And yeah, but I went in there, did no gi for 6 months. Didn't even buy a gi. Didn't really know what it was when I started doing it. Knew it was a martial art. I'd always wanted to do a martial art as a kid, but I'd always been busy doing drama and dancing and all other things like that. So I started doing it and never stopped. So I think about 6 months in, I bought a gi secondhand off Dustin Brown.
Yep.
And then I just kept going on from there. And once I realized people were like, you have to come to the grading and you'll get graded. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then, kept turning up to the gradings and kept.
So you started jiu-jitsu not really knowing what it was?
Yes.
Wow.
Within the first few weeks of doing it, my first session of doing it, and we rolled, and I'm like, what am I doing? And they're like, just try to come past me or whatever they said.
Yeah.
And as soon as I started doing it, I'm like, I can do this. I've got 3 brothers.
Yeah.
I was a rough and tumble kid. I used to wrestle my brothers all the time. So this was just like wrestling with my brothers.
Yeah.
And so I instinctively moved a certain way that complemented jiu-jitsu. And then it did get more obviously a lot more challenging. It's still challenging to this day, which is why I love it as well. But it wasn't hard in the beginning. It was fun.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Awesome.
And when was this? Like, how long ago was this?
2014.
Wow.
I think it was February 2014, so 10 nearly 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's so cool.
So I came up through the ranks just with Carlos. I did one random session at an Absolute gym once because a friend was training there just to check it out. Yeah. And then I've done cross-training overseas a lot. So if I go, I like to travel. So Bali, I've trained with Nico Hahn at Synergy. I trained at Solar Club in Corfu. Where else? A few other places. Yeah. I just look up places where I'm going and I'm like, oh, which gym should I train at here?
That's a lot for your academy that you found it so fun at the beginning as a female because that's not often the case for a lot of people. It can be really overwhelming and very intimidating, especially as let's face it, it's a male-dominated activity, so there's certainly many more dudes on the mat than girls.
100%, yeah.
So yeah,
there were a core group of about 3 or 4 girls who trained a lot there at the time. Yeah. One of them, Megan Evans, who's a black belt now. So there's another couple, 3 or 4 that trained there at the time, and they were wonderful. They were great. So, and the guys there have always been amazing. I've not had any issues with guys on the mats in jiu-jitsu in my whole 11 years. Yeah. I have recently, since becoming a gym owner, heard some disturbing stories about things that have been happening within the industry. And that's concerning that there is still an element out there of, older, more experienced men preying on younger women, and also just inappropriate things happening, people being slapped on the ass, people being made to feel uncomfortable on the mats, people tapping and people not letting go, and that kind of thing. So I've been hearing more of that just in the last few months since we opened up the gym. Yeah. But I personally didn't go through anything like that my whole jiu-jitsu journey so far.
People coming into your gym and then telling you stories about why they sort of left other gyms, or is that just, you're talking to more people?
So one of them is another gym owner who's had some problems with someone who was teaching for him with a younger woman. Yeah. As a girl, like a 16-year-old. and who's, you know, a high-level black belt. So that's a real issue.
Yeah.
And that's in Australia, in Victoria. And then the other one is just a few stories here and there of people who were training elsewhere. Something happened, and they were always going to come and train with us at Supreme. They were waiting for us to open, but something happened in the meantime. Between leaving Cia Paulista headquarters and coming to us, they had an incident in that 8 months that happened to them somewhere else.
It sucks. It sucks, and it's shit, and those sorts of things should never happen, and it's really annoying. And I know I don't know if you were there yesterday, Kim, for the roles that Anton was sort of doing. I can't remember the people who put it together, but it looked like a fun day. Do you want to talk about that real quick, because it's kind of it piggybacks off that, right?
Yeah, for sure. So this episode will probably be released in a couple of weeks. So we'll, we've just recently, Georgia Very from our Abbotsford gym had organised an event, Roles for Respect, for women fleeing family violence. 1 round for every woman killed in Australia through domestic violence, and I think it was 92 rounds that we did over the course of the day. So it was jiu-jitsu or striking, and it was a really great turnout. I think they raised, I can't remember how much money she said they raised. It was huge. So it was a really, really worthwhile cause. And you're right, Alys. Unfortunately, there is still a little bit of that predatory kind of behaviour here in Australia and overseas. Like, I think there's been a recent announcement by the IBJJF as well of a very senior black belt also that's
I've heard some of that too. It's across
recently. So it is unfortunate. I think, I don't know, maybe it's something to do with the power structure, or
I think, look,
especially once.
I mean, I think it happens in every industry. You know, it happens in every. I'm sure if there are chess clubs going on around the world, that there's some fucking idiot sitting there and doing bad things. You know, I think it's just just a trait, and I'm sure part of it's power. I guess in response to that, Alys, it gives you such a strong footing for setting boundaries and rules and that sort of thing. And at Supreme Art Club, right? You know, you're like, these things do not happen here.
We have a strong sexual harassment policy in our waiver, which I know most people don't read the waiver, but we've also been working on maybe putting something on our website as well. And I mean, obviously we have a female owner as well as Augusto. So, and Augusto's wife trains with us, Luana, as well.
Yeah.
My husband just started training.
Awesome.
Which is really exciting.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah. So, for us, respecting everyone on the mats is the most important thing, male or female. There shouldn't be any of that happening on our mats, and we have an absolutely zero tolerance policy if anything happens on our mats. And we also really want to encourage women and girls to train. But I'm putting on a women's only night next year. So from mid-January, we'll be running just a women's sessions that I'll run on, I think, hopefully Monday nights, I think is the day. I've been teaching a lot of kids classes, but as I come into my own as a coach, as I learn a bit more from Augusto and sort of train myself to coach a bit more, we're also planning on having me run just the regular classes as well, because I think it's so important to have women running classes for men and for mixed classes. I think it's a really great thing to have in the club.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that, I mean, you know, jiu-jitsu's based around leverage and based around the concept of a smaller person being able to overpower or to defeat a bigger person. So who better to kind of teach that than a woman, because generally we are smaller than males on the mats. You sort of touched on it already, but I was going to ask, we tend to ask most females that we get on the podcast, what sort of tips you would give to guys like rolling with women? What sort of things? It sounds like they're already in place at your academy, but for people listening.
I have to use Augusto as an example here because he does this so well. And this is with everyone. It's not necessarily just with a woman. It's if you're rolling with somebody who is much less experienced and smaller, the person who is more experienced or bigger needs to just match their pace. It's not about doing anything very differently. You just match their pace. And obviously, if you're a lot heavier than someone, you're not putting your entire weight on their chest or their body. So you're not using as much pressure. But generally, it's just adjusting the pace and adjusting you still let them move, because there's no point in just rolling with someone and sitting on them the entire time. Let them move. let them move and then move with them, and you can still let them move and then control things. But yeah, that's my advice.
For sure. 100%.
I like it. I really do. What sort of things would you do in your classes? So you're sort of talking about like you now as a brown belt and you're taking classes and those sorts of things. How do you sort of structure your classes? What does it look like? And also how much fun are you having? And also how much better at jiu-jitsu are you getting because you're teaching all the time?
Yeah, so at the moment I'm just teaching kids classes and covering the occasional class for Augusto, but the kids classes are a whole nother challenge though, right? Because they're kids and my daughter's in the class. So she's nearly 6 and most of the kids in the class are around the same age. They're between 4 and 7.
Yeah.
And we're getting there. We're getting there. Actually, on Saturday, for the very first time since we opened, I had the kids doing some drills and was helping had 6 kids. So I had 3 pairs. I was helping the 2 boys pairs and I turned around half expecting my daughter and the other girl to be doing piggyback rides like they normally are. But I turned around and they were doing the drill perfectly
Awesome.
together. And I was like, what just happened? So that was a really beautiful moment for me as a mum and as a coach.
Yeah.
But our kids' classes are very fun. Lots of games, put a beanie on the head and like defend the beanie, like trying, kids have to pass the guard to grab the beanie off the other kid's head. The game where the coach stands there and the kids have to climb around them. Lots of fun and games. And lots of situational sort of drilling. So we put them in a position and they fight out of it for 1 minute and we reset. So that's what our kids' classes are looking like. And at the end, there's always a game. We generally play a game called Zombies. I don't know if you guys know it, but it's very popular. It's just like a tag style game.
Yeah.
And then for next year, I'll be planning more like a monthly plan. So each month I'll be focusing on a particular area.
Awesome.
And I intend to do a similar thing with the women's classes next year as well. So we'll start off with, maybe some sweeps and then we'll move into some side control and we'll just work on it like that. So that we're focusing on one area at a time and not just jumping all over the place.
Yeah. You mentioned your daughter, and she's nearly 6. So you've had her since you started training jiu-jitsu. So tell us about that, like first through your pregnancy and then postpartum. Like
so when I was a blue belt, I was doing really well in the comp scene over here, and I was planning to go to the Worlds in 2018. So I had a couple of other friends who were going as well. Carlos was going, so my coach would have been there, and so I was very excited about that. But in my personal life, my husband and I were not trying for a baby. So I'd gone off contraception and we were just seeing if it happened because he already had a daughter. She's now 20. So at the time she was 13 or so.
Yep.
So we sort of thought if we're going to do it, we're going to do it sooner rather than later. So there were two major things possibly happening in my life. There was the Worlds and there was possibly having a baby. And we went away to Bali and I thought, okay, when we get back from Bali, we've been trying for 12 months. It hasn't happened. I'm going back on the pill and I'm going to focus on the competition. We got back from Bali and then I was pregnant. So the Worlds went on hold and I kept training. I kept training up till about 7 months pregnant. Carlos was supportive of it. My obstetrician was supportive. And I just modified what I did. So I wore a Garmin to make sure my heart rate didn't get too high. I didn't do anything I didn't play any bottom game. I changed my whole game to top game, which was a new experience for me as well because I'd been a bit of a guard puller in my early days. And I just worked things differently. And so Carlos awarded me my purple belt while I was pregnant.
Wow.
It was pretty special. And so then purple belt was having a baby, trying to get back to training, but it was a hard slog. I had an emergency Caesar, so it went from hoping to get back after a few weeks to at least being 12 weeks, and then having a baby on the side of the mats who liked to be held the entire time she was awake. So there were times when Carlos was there rocking my baby on the side of the mat so I could have a roll, which was really cool. And so then, so now she's nearly 6. She's been coming with me to jiu-jitsu on Saturday lunchtimes her entire life. Mm-hmm. She's seen kids' classes, been a bit too intimidated by them generally. She's always done ballet. But when she when we decided we were opening the gym, she decided she was training on the one condition that I got her a pink gi. So,
Legend.
so she has a pink gi and she's training.
Yeah.
And she's doing 3 classes a week. And she was the first person in the entire gym to get a stripe, which was very cute.
Oh,
Wow.
that's awesome. How good's that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's going well. It's going really well. But it is a little bit challenging training your own child.
Yeah.
Just when they turn around and they say, "Oh, I don't want to do that," and then the other kids are like, "I don't want to do that either," and it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh no, here we go." So it's like a lot of gentle encouragement. I've been watching some of the Gracie Bullyproof series, which is really helpful because they talk about making things fun and how to correct kids without telling them no, like without making it a negative. So there's a lot of good information out there to help with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then bouncing back to your competition. So you're talking about looking at going to Worlds at Blue Belt. You were obviously competing a fair bit. Like, when did you first start to compete? And from there also, what has your competition sort of been like after having your baby?
Yeah, so I competed at white belt. So 6 months in, I think I did the VIX. I came away with a silver. So I think I lost one fight and won one fight.
Yeah.
And I remember looking back, I've got the videos, you look back at the videos and you go, oh, I actually did real jiu-jitsu there. That's how exciting was that? There was a triangle and
Awesome.
I pulled something off. So that was super exciting as a a brand new 6 months white belt. And then white and blue belt, I just kept competing, sort of VIX, nationals, that kind of thing. I'm not sure if I did a Pan Pacs. I did well mostly. I mostly did well. So I've got a collection of medals.
Yeah.
In 2017 and 2018, I was number 1 in Australia in Masters no-gi.
Fantastic.
And 2018 was the year I felt pregnant. That's double achievement.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, in that particular category, there are not a lot of competitors. Not to downplay my achievement, but Kim, as as women in the sport, there's not many people at our age, weight, belt level to compete against.
Yeah.
We're all
in Australia anyway. Maybe in the US, but for us, we're still too young a sport.
Too young. And so that's why I wanted to go to Worlds and really test myself on that stage. So I didn't get to compete at purple belt. But last year at the VIX, I did compete and I won the gold in the gi. And then I didn't have anyone to fight in Masters for the no-gi. So I dropped to adult and fought Nadia Franklin and Alana Luthwaite. And I lost, but I went I think it was 6.5 minutes against Nadia.
Yeah.
And I had one of the best fights of my life. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
And it was a really good test for me to test my leg game, and it was super fun. It was a great fight, so I was happy.
Awesome.
I was happy with it. I got to do that.
Yeah. For anyone that doesn't know, Nadia Franklin just won Pan Am's gold at black belt level in the US, and I think she's about to go into the no-gi worlds, and she's probably one of the favorites there. So that's amazing.
It was cool.
It's I hear you loud and clear that unfortunately there's just not a lot of Australian female masters competitors. Anyone out there that's listening, please sign up for those tournaments because we need you. People like Alys and myself, we're still out here competing. Please don't make us drop down to adult.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I plan to try and do all the big comps. I want to do the big comps, and then I'll try and support my students at the smaller ones as well. But that's definitely a goal. Augusto and I, we've both committed to that. We are of the belief that if we are coaching and expecting people to compete, or if people want to compete, we have to set a good example as well and show them that we can do it.
Well, obviously, Augusto always sets that example pretty high. So, and I'm sure if you're getting back out there too, Alys, you'll be doing the same. So give us a little bit about, and you too, Kim, give us something to inspire people to come and compete. So Kim, go first, and then Alys, you follow it up.
Oh, wow. Pressure. Well, I guess in terms of competing, I don't know about other people, but I put a lot of pressure on myself a lot of the time. And I wonder why. Why do I do that? Because I say to other people in terms of, when they're feeling anxious about competing or whatever, no one actually cares how you do. Even your coach, to be honest, they'll say, oh, well done or bad luck or whatever. There's all this kind of pressure to perform. But for me, I mean, I've always competed, and I think that has helped me progress a lot faster. So you'll find quite often people that don't compete will tend to take a little bit longer to progress through the ranks. Not that it's about that or anything really, but if you're wanting to improve your jiu-jitsu, I think competition is one of the best and fastest ways to do that, because the lessons that you learn in comp are magnified 100-fold to what you have in class. You know, if you make a mistake in class, not really a big deal. Whereas here in comp, you know, that time you make that mistake, then that's the result. You know, sometimes it can be the win or lose type of thing. You won't make that mistake again. So yeah, that's my
absolutely. And to piggyback off what you just said, that's it. You learn where you have gaps in your game when you compete, and it's a measure of where you really are. So you can be and again, as women, when there's only a couple of girls that you're sparring with in the gym, and obviously we spar with the guys too, but when you're trying to measure where you're at effectively in your own gym, and you're with the same people day in, day out, and you know each other's game, and it's a really hard way to measure where you really are. And so going into a competition, you get to see where you're actually at against people that your peers. And the other thing is, you meet some really cool people.
Yeah.
Like I've met some really lovely people who I'm still in contact with, whether it's on Facebook or however. And when they come back to Melbourne, they, you know, we grab a coffee, or you might compete against them again, or it's just really exciting.
I've stayed over it. I've couch surfed at people's places when I've, you know, made friends with them through jiu-jitsu. So internationally as well, it's amazing. Like I've got friends all around the world really because of it.
And
So
being able to build that sense of community in what is a small community in Australia. Having the community being tight and, like, you know, knowing people, it's important. It's really great to build on that.
Yeah, for sure. How do you go with kind of balancing your own training with coaching? Like, because that's always a bit of a challenge too. Yeah.
So I haven't had that issue too much yet, because Augusto is taking most of the classes that I'm doing at the moment. Next year that may change. I know he struggles with that. In that, but we actually have a lot of high level people come and visit us in the last few months since we opened, which has been really great. I mean, Augusto and I both know a lot of people within the community, and so we've had a lot of people drop in. We have an amazing teammate, Alex Barreto, who trains with us, and he just celebrated his 30 years as a judo black belt on the weekend. So we had a great judo seminar at the gym, and it was a really nice celebration of that. And we also do a lot of stand-up at our gym as well. We start all our rounds standing up, in preparation for comp, but also in preparation for real life, and just, you know, it's just something that we do. And we really love that. So
Awesome. Fantastic.
Your husband, getting him on the mat, and is he coachable, or does he sit there and go like, I know this?
So my husband has been a boxer for a very long time, and there's been a few times back in the early days when Carlos would say, "Oh, come do jiu-jitsu. Come, you know, when are you going to start training?" And he'd be like, "No, I'm a boxer. No, it's not my thing. Not my thing." And then since we opened, he started doing a few classes, and he's enjoying it. He did hurt himself already, but he's recovering. He's doing well. He's training like a white belt. He's doing well. I'm going to get in trouble for saying that.
Perfect.
No, but you have to, like, the thing is, my husband's reasonably athletic, and he has always been good at sports. But we all know that jiu-jitsu is not like other sports. You can be a marathon runner and you can go do a couple of rounds of jiu-jitsu and you are gassed. So he's just experiencing the humbling that happens when you start training BJJ. But he's doing well. He's getting there, and he's having fun, and that's what is most important. And that's what I'm trying to instill with my daughter as well, is that it's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to go there and have a good time. And sure, that you can have a hard role with someone, or you can have those friendly rivalries with your teammates as you're coming up through the ranks, but it's supposed to be enjoyable. And for me, it's one of the greatest benefits in my life of BJJ is the mental health aspect. It's my mindfulness. When I'm on the mat, I am not thinking about anything else, none of my other stresses. And when I finish training, you just feel good. You feel great, like the dopamine release. You just feel better, even if you were having a crappy morning.
Yeah.
People understand that until you've trained jiu-jitsu, do they?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
no one gets that. If you've never trained jiu-jitsu, you do not get that it's a mindfulness.
Yeah. Yeah. And even in those first few weeks, it doesn't feel like mindfulness either.
No.
Like
You're
you're
just
just
surviving.
struggling to not
It just
die.
feels
Yeah.
sucky, and you're like, nah.
Yeah.
But
And
Sam also turned around and said to me, because there'd been times when I had talked about how hard things were, or I had had small injuries, or had frustrations, and he hadn't got it. And he hadn't got how hard jiu-jitsu could be. And he turned around and he actually conceded, and he goes, I can see now, how hard it is what you do, and like how impressive it is, which is really cool.
Yeah, 100%. My husband's the same. He was a power lifter and used to complain about being sore. Now he knows what sore is. That's a whole new level of sore. I asked earlier about like advice for guys rolling with girls. What about on the other side? Like, what advice would you give to any females that are listening out there who are, whether they're starting off or maybe they're struggling a little bit? What you're sounding like your club has a really good culture, really good environment for females, but not everyone unfortunately has that. What would you say for people that might be struggling a little bit with jiu-jitsu girls or dudes as well, but especially girls?
Trying to attract girls?
No, just that are already at an academy that are, because jiu-jitsu is hard. Yeah, we've talked about how hard it is, but I feel like for us, we're generally a bit smaller than our other training partners. Like, what sort of advice would you give to women on the mats just to be able to stick it out?
I mean, you just have to keep turning up.
Yeah.
You just turn up and don't give up, because we all have hard days. We all have days, even now, where you turn up and you feel like you can't do a single thing properly. And then you have other days where you feel like you're on top of the world. But it's not about each individual day. It's about the sum of all the parts. So it's about making incremental gains. And the other thing is the women I've known who've been a lot smaller, who've been so good, they're quite technical, and a lot of them do homework. So if you learn a move, you video it, or you write it down, or you research it a bit more, and then you drill it again, and you practice. So you get better at things when you practice. That's just basic. So it's about mindset, having like a growth mindset where you're not going, oh, this is too hard, I'm not going to do this, I can't do this anymore. It's like, this is too hard right now, but if I keep working at it, I'm going to be better. I may not be the best in the world, but I will be better than I was yesterday and better than I was last week.
Yeah.
I think it's so important. I think what you just said about whether you're videoing your roles or your techniques that you're doing, or staying after class and just rehashing the thing that you just did, let's do another 5 reps or whatever it might be. I think those moments are what differentiate the very, very good people, I think, quite often, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I could talk about, so I started at some stage quite a few years ago, I picked up an acoustic guitar and started to play that. And I was probably, practicing for 40 minutes, most days. And I got to the stage where I could almost play a song and people would recognize it, right? But combining like the strumming pattern with the chord changes, I'm like, oh, that's hard. But the more you do it, the better you get. And then you don't do it for a few days, and then you think you can do it, and then you can't do it, and then you got to humble yourself and sort of start back at, okay, hang on, I need to focus a little bit. But if I just stayed with half an hour a day or whatever it might be, it's amazing how much growth you get, and then all of a sudden you can play guitar or whatever. Growing up, for me, I used to look at people who played guitar or were good at jiu-jitsu or whatever it might be and go, these guys are just so natural, they just pick it up. I'm like, no, they actually did a lot of work to be able to do the thing that they do. And I think that's the important part, and as you just said, like, stick with it. Just keep turning up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we all, like I said, we all have good days and we all have bad days on the mat. But, you don't let the bad day determine your entire journey.
Yeah, no, that's it. Look, we're nearly out of time. Thank you so much, Alys, for giving up your time, especially, very busy, you academy owner, etc., and a mum and all that. So yeah, thank you once again. Do you have any final words for our listeners?
I don't think so, but if anyone's around South Melbourne and wants to come in for a trial, come check us out.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Go and check out Supreme Art Jiu Jitsu. Alys, it's been wonderful having you on. Thank you for sharing your insights. And absolutely, like the best of luck with the school going forward. You've got two, like including yourself, you've got two awesome leaders at the club already. So we know that it's going to continue to grow. We're looking forward to seeing you out on the comp scene. So that'll be really, really good. And good luck for the next years ahead with your business as well. So I'm sure it'll be super successful. It's in a great location. And anybody out there who would like to go along and try Supreme Art Jiu Jitsu, go and shoot them a message and get on board and get down there, right? So nice and easy. Kim, beautiful. You schedule these and you do a fantastic job as always. That's it for another episode of Roll or Die. I am currently wearing the Roll or Die t-shirts. If you would like one, shoot us a message. The link has closed. So if we have one in your size, you might be lucky enough to get one, but we'll sort that out for you for sure. I think that's it. Kim, what do you got?
By the time this episode comes out, the pre-orders should be hopefully delivered to those people who have already put in their pre-orders. We're hoping to get those very soon. But this is a really good way that you can support the podcast. We are aiming to grow our audience, so help us do that by representing with a t-shirt, $30. It's really, really good quality thanks to our friends at Mana. And we also may have some more news coming in the new year as well with regard to another sponsor that's coming on board. So we're looking at growing Roll or Die. Looking forward to you guys helping us do that as well, please. So thanks very much, and we'll see you on the mats.
If anyone works at Tag Heuer and would also like to sponsor, my wrist is empty, so feel free to do that. We'll see you on the next episode of Roll or Die, guys.